In this video, we're going to learn how to connect to various data sources using the Excel data connection process. I'm here in a workbook showing several different types of data sources in the tabs at the bottom here. We're going to connect to a text data file, CSV format, Excel data file, and sample web data. So we're going to start with this sample text data file. Now I'm going to take a look at it first. It's just a plain list of contact information. Once I've seen it, I know what I'm going to expect once the connection is made. And then we're going to use the PowerQuery process to clean up the data if it needs it and bring it back to either the Excel application window or send it directly to the Power Pivot data model window. So let's get started. I'll begin by clicking From Text CSV here at the top. Navigate to where the file is located. There's our sample North American contact list.csv. I'm going to click Import. And remember, import doesn't mean replicating the content in the Excel environment. When you see import in this whole process, no matter what type of data we're connecting to, it actually really means link. And I'll show that, I'll demonstrate that once we've made our connection. So as you can see, this is a sample of the data. It's about 1,000 records, but it's only going to show us the first 200 rows, and it's going to determine the data type based on what it sees in those 200 rows. So number, currency, date, text, whatever the case may be, the data type will be set based on what it sees in those 200 rows. Notice the delimiter is comma, which is what CSV stands for, comma separated values. And notice that the first record is actually intended to be the column headings, but it's not going to give us that until we take it into PowerQuery and apply that change. So which is what transform data means. When you click transform data, it means go to PowerQuery and apply whatever changes need to be made. So I'm going to click on that. Give it a moment. It's going to launch PowerQuery. Remember that you cannot use Excel and PowerQuery at the same time. I can try and click away from PowerQuery, but I'll hear that beeping sound. You cannot use Excel and PowerQuery simultaneously. So you have to finish what you're doing in PowerQuery and then return to Excel. Now here I can rename the query to CSV, North American Contact List. And then on the Home tab, about the middle, you'll see Use First Row as Headers. So that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now notice the first row shows Ontario in the business, state, or province. I'm going to show you how that needs to be corrected in the CSV file, and then I'll show you how to correctly apply changes in the CSV file connection so that all provinces can be fully spelled out, provinces and states, or you can abbreviate them as well. So what I'm going to do is send this back to the Excel environment as a table with no further changes. Clicking Close and Load, notice what it does. It generates a new table on a new sheet so we can work with it here. Now if I change Ontario here to ON, that's going to be a problem because the link is a one-way link. As I click on the Query tab and refresh, notice it returns to Ontario, and that's because the source data, the CSV file, is actually showing Ontario for that first record. So I'm going to bring that up in Notepad just to show you. You can see Ontario in that first record here. If I change it here and then save the CSV file and close and then return to Excel and refresh, you'll notice it now reflects that change. So be aware that this change is one directional. Either the source data needs to change or you need to overwrite that or apply the change in PowerQuery. Let me show you how that's done. So we right click on the connection name on the right hand side, clicking Edit to return to PowerQuery Editor, or just hover over the connection name and click Edit down here. Either way, it's going to take you back into the PowerQuery Editor. If you want the province or state fully spelled out, you can actually go into any cell containing the state value or province value in this case, and you would use the replace value, and it would give you the option of replacing all occurrences of that particular abbreviation with the full word. As I click OK, notice what it does all the way down, and also notice the applied steps on the right-hand side. So in effect, it's memorizing and overlaying the change on top of the data. Now when I click Close and Load, it's going to show that here in the table that was generated out of the PowerQuery window. Now let's talk about connecting to Excel data, and this time we're going to send the Excel data directly to the data model. For this exercise, you will need to have Power Pivot, and we'll click Manage to go to the data model. And if you don't have Power Pivot, we turn that on using Developer and COM add-ins. Now if you don't have Developer, which is normally turned off by default, right-click on the tab, any tab in the ribbon, customize the ribbon, and then click Developer, turn that on, click OK, then you'll be able to click COM add-ins and Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. So that'll add the Power Pivot tab. Now the reason for using the data model is because the capacity of an Excel worksheet is limited. It actually only allows us to navigate down to 1,048,576 records, which might seem like a lot, but for some situations it is very limiting. Right, 1,048,000, depending on the nature of your data, may not be enough room for your data. So that's why we use Power Pivot. It gives us the ability to connect to data sources that can be huge. But even if it's not that large, it actually uses the Power Pivot environment, uses space and memory much more efficiently. So it doesn't take up as much space as if we had the data on an Excel sheet. So that's one of the main reasons why you want to connect your data to the data model. It's really just an alternative repository for information. Now, that said, let's get started. So here we're going to click Get Data from File and from Excel Workbook. Here we're going to connect to the North American Contact List XLSX. Remember, when you see the word import, it's not the same as you might think of import as being a replication of data from one source to another. You're really just making a connection. So I'm going to click Import. And here we can see a couple of tables. The one that I need is Sample North American Contacts. And by clicking on that table, I will see a sample of the data. And if I need to select multiple tables, I can actually do that by clicking the checkbox at the top. But in this case, we don't necessarily need to. We just want the one. Again, transform data means launch PowerQuery, so we can do a little bit of cleanup. And then here in the PowerQuery editor, we can start by seeing that the first row needs to be brought up into the first column heading area. So use first row as headers takes care of that, and then we can right click on the query name, choose rename, and this is going to be the XLSX version of the North American Contacts. Now this is sourcing a different file, so we don't see the Ontario here changing, but we could do the same thing in the Excel connection as we did in the CSV connection. This is going to be a little bit different because we're going to close and load to rather than taking the data and bringing it into the Excel environment. When we click Close and Load To, we have the option of bringing it into Excel as a table, a pivot table report, and even a pivot chart. But what I tend to do is I create the connection and I send it to the data model. And there's reasons why you might want to do that. Again, it can be a large data set beyond 1 million rows, and you want to store the data in a place where you can create pivot tables and pivot charts out of it, but you don't want it to take up as much space. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Remember, only create connection and check the add this data to data model. Now, nothing appears to have happened, except on the right-hand side, we can actually see that the XLSX data connection was successfully made. It's giving us the total number of records that were loaded, but we can't see the data yet. And that's because it's going to the data model, which we access by clicking Power Pivot and then Manage. Once we're here, we now see the data exactly as it was in the original Excel file. So we've connected to the Excel file. You can connect to multiple Excel files if you need to. But what we can do here is from the data model, we can generate our pivot tables, pivot charts, and even create variations of pivot tables and pivot charts, and even 4 charts simultaneously based on this data set. Now, from here, we can also connect to other data sources. So if I click on From Other Data Sources, and you can see all the options here, Microsoft Access, Oracle, and so on. Here's where we can connect to text files or Excel files. So if I click on text files and then click Next, I can then browse, and I can even connect to the same CSV file that I was using before. So I don't have to do it through Excel. I can make the connection here. Now I don't need to do that because I've already got it, but know that you can. So I'm going to cancel out of here. Also note that you would want to choose the checkbox of Use First Row as column headers in this scenario as well. So I'm going to click Cancel, and this is how you send data directly to the data model, bypassing the Excel window, because it's a more efficient way to store your data. To return to Excel, we click up here at the top left corner, and unlike PowerQuery, we don't have to necessarily close Power Pivot. We can literally tile these 2 application windows side by side and see the changes that are made from one window to the next. So that is an option. But to return to Excel, you click on the Excel icon, and you're back here in the original Excel file where we're making these connections. So let's move on to sample web data source next. So when connecting to a web data source, we'll once again click on Data from Web, and I happen to have a link to a Wikipedia page with country codes or abbreviations for all the countries around the world. So I'm going to just copy that to the clipboard. As I click on From Web, I'll be able to paste it into the URL field and begin the process of connecting to that data. Once it connects, I get a series of tables. I only really want the first one, so I'm going to click on that. And because I do need to do some cleanup, I'll select Transform Data. It'll launch the PowerQuery window. And again, I'm going to want to rename the query to something a little simpler. Now, taking a look at this data set, we've got a lot of fields or columns that we actually don't need. So what I'm going to do is grab the 4th column and move it by clicking on the column heading and simply dragging it into the 2nd column position. Notice I can change the column width while I'm at it. And then from here, I can click on the 3rd column. And as I select that column and then scroll across using the scroll bar at the bottom, shift clicking on the last column block selects from the 3rd all the way to the end. And then from here, I can delete those extraneous columns. Notice, by the way, the applied steps on the right-hand side. Reordered columns, removed columns. So it's memorizing what I'm doing as I go along. This way, I can reapply it to the same or a different data set that has the same structure. Next, I want to change the column heading names to just country names and abbreviation. And then having done that, now we're going to talk about how to remove specific records based on criteria. So this is going to be a vertical filtering that we apply using the drop-down arrow to the right of the field that you want to apply it to. In this country name column, there are references to other countries that are already represented. So we can see British Virgin Islands actually exists also as Virgin Islands. So what we want to do is turn those check marks off, meaning hide them in the results that are being displayed here. So we're going to click on OK. Those will disappear. Again, it's memorizing the filtering here on the right hand side. Next, I want to remove ISO 3166, clicking on the drop down and then searching for ISO, deselecting that, and then still in the drop down, searching for country and deselecting country name. Once I'm done, I click OK. Now I've got a clean list. I could keep going. There are other references, but you get the basic idea. This is essentially the process of cleaning up the data using the mechanism of applied steps and then sending that data back into the Excel window using close and load. I don't want to send it to the data model. I just want it to be represented as a table in Excel. So I'm going to click on close and load, and we'll see that table set up here on a brand new sheet with country codes. So that's how to connect and do further cleanup on a web source data table. So consider that if you're interested in working with data sources that may be on the internet, not in Excel or CSV format. So in this next step, we're going to take advantage of some data repositories that are publicly available using the data types gallery here on the data tab on your ribbon. For example, if we have country name information and we want to see if there's additional details about each country that could be made part of this table, we select the entire country name column, and then up here in the gallery, we'll notice geography. So geography essentially is a way to map values that you have in your table to those data repositories and pull in those details as if they are part of your original data set. It's pretty cool. And it's free. It comes with data on the ribbon within the Excel 2016 and later versions. So take advantage of it. It's actually pretty amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and click Geography. It's going to scan the list that I'm selecting, recognize the names in the data repository that is publicly available, and you'll notice it's powered by Bing. Notice at the top here, top of the new panel that's been added, Data Selector. It's recognizing certain countries that are not available. There's no data for them. And so what we can do is we can skip that, close the panel for Data Selector, and then just leverage the remaining countries. Now here on the top right of the table, you'll see Add Column. And what it's going to do is give you options that you can pull into a brand new column within this existing table that allows us to leverage the data sources. So I'm going to go ahead and add the area, and then I'm going to click again and look for population, which is further down, widening the column as I go. And if I see something that says field, well, that's an example where it just doesn't capture the data and maintain it. So we can go ahead and hide any of those references by using the filter button on area, deselecting field, and clicking OK. And that's just going to leave that out. We don't need it. And we can, of course, perform sorts and filtering operations on any of these. I'm going to go ahead and remove field on population as well. And that essentially is how you can expand on your data connections using the tools that are here. Notice all the different types of data that you can connect to and add to your existing data sources. As a final note, if you want to break a connection to any of your data sources, such as the country codes, we can do that by right-clicking here on the Queries and Connections panel on the specific connection that you want to delete. You can delete from here or from the pop-up menu. When you click on delete, notice that it says, are you sure you want to delete the country codes? If you delete this query, any data that will be loaded by this query will not be refreshable. But the good news is it's not going to delete the actual table. So if I click delete, it simply breaks the connection. This is now an independent table that is not refreshable, so it's not going to have any changes, but you can permanently use it for whatever you need to do. Similarly, if I go into the query window for the CSV or the XLSX and click edit, and then right click here, I can delete the connection as well. And finally, as I close and load and then go to the Power Pivot window and click Manage, in the Power Pivot window, I can right click on the Sheet tab down below and do the same thing, breaking the connection to that data. So let's summarize. We started by creating a CSV connection, sending it into an Excel table. Then we created an Excel data connection, sending it directly into the Power Pivot data model. Then we demonstrated how to create a data connection in the Power Pivot data model. Then we created a web query connection, cleaning it up in PowerQuery and sending it into an Excel table. We connected two online data repositories, adding country details to an existing data connection table. And we finished by breaking a data connection in Excel, PowerQuery, or Power Pivot. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this video.